So go check that video out because I cut it just right, I think, so that way you guys couldn't see what was going on there. But it does open up a hole in the ground because the concrete is crumbling. And I did a video early on when I started on TikTok talking about how, as a kid and probably partially in my teens, I had this just fascination with New York. And that was because in the 80s and early 90s, the film industry heavily marketed New York. Like, it was everywhere. There were commercials on TV. A lot of movies were there. You know, just to name two of my favorites, Remo Williams was New York centric on the time they were repairing the Statue of Liberty. That was featured in a number of movies. And then Ghostbusters with New York, you know, and New York was propped up to this really amazing place. Adventures took place there, like Crocodile Dundee and stuff. You know, all of that was there. It was a magical place. Even, you know, Coming to America, it was just one of those things where, like, New York was America. But anyway, even with what this video shows, and I've seen so many things. I've seen walls falling off of buildings in New York. I have seen stuff like this where it leads to the subway, the flooding, all of it. It's an old city. It's falling apart. But while I wouldn't want to live in New York or the surrounding areas there, I would love to visit there. I just don't have the means to. Oddly enough, and I know a lot of people are going to comment negatively about this probably, or say, hey, you should think twice about that. I think an area that needs to be fixed. If I won the lottery tomorrow, I would probably relocate to some place like Elmira, New York. Now, I understand the area. I know a lot of you, like, you don't get, probably be like, you don't get it. I do. I've looked into the area. One, the land is cheap there, and that's part of the problem. But I would do what I could to return manufacturing to that area and bring jobs there, and try to fix some of the issues of racism there, because that's one of the bigger things is the racism in Elmira. Elmira has a lot of iconic homes that are falling apart. It needs some new blood. The town needs to be really, really fixed up and worked on, but it's a beautiful place and it's iconic. A lot of the houses look like something out of a 1980s movie, you know, with these big homes and stuff. Not all of them are that way, but there's a lot of them there. But still, New York holds a special place in my heart. It's a place I've never been to, but I've seen so much in film and television that even though I know it is not the same in real life, it's close enough that I can go touch something that once existed in film only. It's a way of touching something in film that just doesn't, you know, nothing else really exists like that, right? A lot of locations now, they'll say they're like in Pennsylvania, but the home's actually in California, or, you know, stuff like that. And you feel kind of cheated. But even with New York falling apart the way it is, with a lot of the real estate problems, with a lot of people leaving because it's become expensive, while the city does fall apart, unfortunately, there's still part of me that enjoys the city for what I've seen, you know, in film. I know I haven't been there. It's not to tell anybody that, you know, they don't know what they're talking about or anything, because I understand living there is vastly different, and I wouldn't want to live there. I've heard too many horror stories of just how horrible things can be. Yes, I've heard good stories about how well things can be, but, you know, I could do a whole nother video on how I think some people live in a bubble and ignore some of that ugly to live in kind of a fantasy. And hey, I mean, some people, that's their mode of survival. I just know I could not physically survive there. I don't think I could, unless I'm completely wrong and that's what I'm doing wrong in life. But anyway, yeah, even with New York falling apart, I still have this dream made up in my head from lots of media consumption of what New York is, and all of it, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it just is there. And that, I mean, that's a lasting effect of advertising the 80s and 90s. So